Hey friends, in today's video we are talking all about makeup tips for makeup over 40. I am 42, about to be 43 very soon, and I was just sitting here thinking about how I do my makeup today versus how I did my makeup 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And there are definitely some kind of tips and tricks that I do every day and things that I've shifted as I've gotten a little bit older that I think you will find very helpful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to have all the products, of course, that I use tagged in YouTube Shopping so you guys can shop them, and I will include shade names and all of that in the description box, okay? All right, let's get started. Okay, before we start with foundation, there is one thing that I've already done that I think is so important. One, it's applying SPF, which we know we all need to be doing regardless. I like to use a tinted SPF for a few reasons. One, I like it because it gives me a little bit of coverage, not full coverage, but it evens the skin tone out. So on the days where I don't want to wear foundation, I can apply a little bit of concealer and feel like I have enough coverage, even though it's light coverage. But two, it allows me to use less foundation. Because I already have an even skin tone, I don't need to go in with as much foundation as I typically would if I had no tinted moisturizer, if I had no tinted SPF on, if that makes sense. So using a tinted SPF versus a clear or transparent SPF, I think can really help lend itself to giving just a more natural, lighter foundation look, okay? So I'm gonna go in with the new Natasha Denona High Glam Foundation. Now, when I choose foundations for my skin, I'm 42, I'm almost 43, I'll be 43 in just a couple of months. I really look for foundations that are lightweight, and a great test to that is just kind of apply it on the back of your hand and see how quickly or slowly it moves down the hand. So you can see that this foundation is not real thin and watery because it's not like sliding down the hand, but it's also not like staying solid. It's moving a little bit because of the gravity. Gravity is pulling it down. So it tells you that it's not a really heavy or thick foundation, but it's also not thin and watery. It's kind of right in the middle there. You want to look for foundations that aren't too heavy. You also want to look for foundations that really spread and have the ability to spread. And typically that is going to be related to the thickness of that product. If it's really thick, you're going to have to work harder to spread it and move it around, which means you're likely going to apply a lot more product than you actually need just because you can't move it and spread it. So you'll have to pick up more to get it to cover the entire face. So look for foundations that are, again, not too heavy in consistency, and foundations that really spread and move. And if you notice, when I am applying this right off the bat, I am moving the brush to cover the entire area of this face. I'm not just staying in this one little area to apply all of that product right there and then picking up more and then going here. I'm really bouncing it and applying it all around the face, and then I will go back in and blend out. Now, the type of foundation that you choose in terms of the finish is really going to be dependent on your preference, right? And your skin type, also the climate that you live in. So I like to look for foundations that either say radiant matte, which is so funny because those two are just opposing descriptions, but there are radiant matte foundations, long wearing radiant, natural foundations, natural matte foundations. I look for foundations that have those descriptive words because what that means is it's going to give more of a natural look to the skin, meaning it's not going to look flat and matte and dry, but it's also not going to be like dewy and glowy and wet looking because I need it to last all day. And typically foundations that are very dewy and wet looking, they have a shorter lifespan and they require a lot more touch-ups throughout the day to keep that shine at bay. So I don't want to worry about it. I want to put it on in the morning and I want to know that it looks good all day. Maybe I touch up once or twice, maybe at the most twice, but I don't want to be maintaining my foundation throughout the day. This one is really beautiful. It is a new launch. It's gorgeous. The shade is perfect. I'm wearing the shade, I believe I have the shade in 7, and it's just a perfect neutral shade, you guys. It is really, really nice. Now, I did about a pump and a half, but I'm definitely not going to use all of that foundation. Really just use what you need. So again, we're going onto the face and we are bouncing and spreading that around. And do that immediately when you put your brush on the skin. So once you pick up product, the first place you put your brush is where you're going to deposit the most product, right? So really go and deposit that all around the face and then go back and blend out. I think one of the biggest mistakes I just see is just an over application of product, whether that is concealer or foundation or cream shadow. When you over apply products, they just tend to magnify texture. They also don't wear as well throughout the day. Maybe they look great when you first apply it, but as you move and smile and make expressions with your face, it tends to kind of crease or crack that product. So be very mindful about how much product you're applying. So as you can see, I'm leaving quite a bit of foundation on. This is all the foundation I'm going to use, I'm not going to go in for any more. Yes, this foundation is beautiful. I think this would work great for all skin types. It does have a little bit of a glow, so if you're someone that just wants more of a kind of flatter matte finish, then, I think this one might be a little dewy for you, but it's beautiful. It's blurring, it's long wearing, and it has a very soft, radiant glow. Now I'm using the BK Beauty 106 brush. This is my favorite foundation brush. I really love this brush because I can bounce it and kind of stipple it onto the skin to build coverage, and then I can really buff it and sheer it out when I want to spread that product. Okay, next we're going to conceal, and I want to share a few tips about concealer here. I have noticed, especially the last year, that my under eye area has not only gotten a little darker, but it's also, I've lost volume there. It looks more hollow. I can just tell that I'm losing volume there, and I've already talked about this several times. I haven't decided to do anything about it yet in terms of filler or treatment. There's still so much I want to learn about all of those options, but for now we're just using makeup to conceal and cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a concealer. This is the RMS, the Revitalize Hydra Concealer. First going to go in with this, and then I'm going to share a little trick you can do if you have a really hollow sunken and under eyes that I've been using that has really been helping me. Now I'm using the shade WN011. You want to make sure that your concealer is the right shade. You want to find something that is peachy enough and deep enough to actually conceal and neutralize that darkness. If you go in right off the bat with a really light, bright concealer, something that's very much lighter than the rest of your skin tone, and you have really dark circles, you're still going to see like this gray cast coming through. So make sure you choose a color that's peachy enough. And I'm going to focus this kind of right in the inner corner. I really like this concealer. I got this a couple weeks ago. I've been playing with it. It's nice. It's very hydrating, very creamy, but it doesn't move and slide around. It's very long wearing. It's a very nice formula, and the price on it is pretty good. I think it's around $30. I expected it to be more. It's a very good product. Then I'm going to go in with the 110 brush from BK Beauty, and I'm just going to kind of slightly tap underneath the eye to spread that product from the inner corner to the outer corner, okay? So we're just going to spread it, but not completely blend it out, and go to the other eye. I'm going to let this side kind of self-set and dry down a little bit. When you allow your concealer to dry even a little bit, it gives you a little more coverage. Perfect, okay? Then I'm going to take my brush and just run it on a little towel, tissue to remove any excess product. This is a little trick that I do pretty much with every process of the application. I always take my brush and run it on a little towel when I'm working with cream or liquid products. It just keeps your brushes performing better. When your brushes are oversaturated with cream or liquid products, the bristles don't fluff out as much, and it'll impact the way that it blends. So that's why it's important to, one, wash your brushes regularly, but even between, applications, just kind of give it a quick little dry clean. It'll help. Perfect. Okay. Oh, okay, so good. All right, so look at that. I mean, that just did it. That did the trick. I really don't need to do anything else. I don't need to go in and color correct or add anything, but I do want to share a little trick I've been doing lately involving the Trish McEvoy Instant Eye Lift. I don't need to do it today, but I do want to show you this because I have used other concealers or maybe the wrong shade, and I still felt like I saw that darkness or hollow peeking through, or maybe the concealer wasn't as full coverage as this, and you can look down, you can still see that hollow kind of dent there. Take something like the Trish McEvoy Instant Eye Lift. This is like an eye brightener, and it's a pinky shade. You can also use something light peach. I was talking about the Cali Ray Golden Hour a couple weeks ago. That would also work. It's got more of a golden vibe, but something just lighter and brighter. And what you want to do is you want to take that and apply it right in that hollow area, okay? So as you notice, I'm not going right underneath the eye by the lashes. I'm going right where that hollow area starts and stops, right there. And then I'm going to apply a little bit of this. It looks like I applied a lot, but I just kind of spread what I applied. I just spread that out. And I'm going to go back in with my concealer brush and tap it. So what this is doing is it's taking a lighter color. So remember that light colors reflect light, dark colors recede light. So because that area is already looks to be receded, is that the right word? We're bringing some lightness to make that look like it's coming out, right? And popping out a little bit. That's what we're doing here. We're playing a trick on the eye. Perfect. Oh, do you see that? It just kind of brightens that up. And it really does give the illusion of adding volume there. And you can do this trick not just underneath the eye, but you can also do it if you have really deep marionette lines. You can do it there. You can do it here if you lost volume here. Any area that you look in and you're like, I feel like I've lost some volume. Even underneath, like where you would typically contour or bronze, you can do that. In fact, every time I get my makeup done professionally for a photo shoot or an event, they do all those extra tricks that I just don't take the time to do every day. But those little tricks really make all the differences. You know, those subtle little tweaks make such big differences in your makeup. Ooh, so, so good. I love the way the skin looks. It's healthy, it's glowing, we've got full coverage, but it doesn't feel heavy or look heavy. It's very light and natural. Okay, next, let's talk about powder. Now, powdering has definitely, my perspective on powdering has definitely changed over the years. I used to be a heavy Studio Fix, MAC Studio Fix girl. I would pack on that powder foundation. I'd powder everywhere and lots of it. Now, I still use powder foundation. I love the Jane Iredale Pure Pressed Mineral Foundation, but that's a very different type of powder foundation than anything else I've ever tried. But when it comes to setting powder, I still set underneath the eyes. I still set the center of the face. Setting with powder really ensures that your makeup is going to last longer. It locks everything in place and it just dries it down a little bit. So it prevents it from moving or sliding around, right? But on the other side of that, if you over powder, it can look very dry. It can, again, magnify texture. It can, make areas look cakey and heavy when that's not the goal. So it's a very kind of delicate balance. You want to apply powder, but you want to apply the right powder and you want to apply the right amount of powder. So I have been loving this powder from Sephora. This is the Blur It Loose Setting Powder, and this is the pink shade. This is one of many that I love. I just love a nice, fine, loose powder. That's what you want. You want a really fine loose powder. Loose powders are more refined and lighter than a pressed powder will be. Pressed powders are typically almost always going to be heavier, not necessarily always. There are some sheer ones, but generally speaking, pressed powder with pigment is going to be heavier than a loose powder will be. So that's why I like loose powders. Now I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to use the N19 brush to apply this. This is kind of gives you the effect of a velour powder puff. I'm going to dip it in here and I'm first going to go to the forehead because, again, I have a lot of product here. I'm actually going to kind of blot it in my hand, but I want to make sure that I don't apply too much powder underneath the eyes. I'm less concerned about applying more powder here, and the reason for that is because I don't have like texture on the forehead, right? I don't have those expression fine lines that is going to be accentuated if I over apply powder. So I like to start there. Now that I've got most of the powder off the brush, then I will go and I will just gently press underneath the eye. I'm softly setting. This powder is also blurring. Okay, let's look at the difference, you guys, between the two. Wow, look at that. This is with the powder, this is without. Obviously, this is more matte and it also smoothed everything out and blurred everything compared to this side. So that is really what this powder does. Now I'm focusing and concentrating that powder underneath the eye and then also right here around the nose. I'm gonna go do the other side, but we're gonna blot it on my hand first. Perfect. Okay, and then I like to powder right here as well in these smile lines because, again, foundation can migrate and move in those areas and settle in that area, and I like to powder on the chin. But you really powder where you feel is necessary. If you have oily skin, you're oily all over, powder everywhere. Just keep it light. I wouldn't use this brush to powder all over. I would use this brush to powder where I'm powdering, but then when I'm going to set around the face, I would use something like the 104. We'll go ahead and do that just to show you, but I would use the 104 to powder right here. This is going to apply less product, just give a soft little veil of powder. Perfect. So good. So again, choosing the right powder and applying the right amount of powder is so important when you are applying powder over the age of 40. And I hate to say over the age of 40 because that's so general, right? My skin could be very different than your skin. We could be the same age. You could be 10 years older than me and your skin could, be smoother than my skin. Like it's such a vague thing to say, right? But I think just in the purpose of like creating content that is being searched for on YouTube, and I think what we are searching for as women, these are, key search terms that we're looking for. But let's go ahead and move on to bronzer. Now, when it comes to bronzer, I typically use cream more often than I use powder, but there are powder bronzers that I love. The one you guys might be thinking of that I've been talking a ton about is this Christian Dior powder. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. But it's a very like velvety powder. It almost reminds me, the payoff reminds me of almost a cream in a powder form. But today we are going to use cream, and I want to share a new bronzer that I picked up last week, and here it is. It's this one from Trish McAvoy. It's a little bronzer in a pan. I love this product. It is so good. The reason I like creams is they're a little more hydrating to the skin than obviously a powder is going to be, but I just also love the blendability of creams. It just allows you to really work it into the skin, so it just kind of melds with the skin and it looks just more natural, and you get it more of a seamless blend. So I'm going to go in with the N18 and I'm really loading the brush up, and then I'm going to blot it on the back of my hand just to get some of that excess product off. And with this particular brush, this brush makes it very easy to just kind of stamp the product on, really just press. And I like to follow my cheekbone. I'm trying to be more careful about not taking that bronzer too low because that will pull the face down, right? I want to keep it a little higher, really right on that cheekbone. And then I'm going to take what's left on this and I'm going to run it into the hairline. This just makes everything look more cohesive and gives the illusion of more of a sun-kissed look to the skin and not just like a, contour. Do you see that? Look how pretty that looks. So pretty and soft and light. This side obviously has nothing, so you can see a lot more definition. We have created more definition here. We've also kind of lifted the cheek. Do you notice how this cheek looks a little lower and this looks a little higher? I've taken your eye to look here. I'm saying, hey, my cheekbones are here, they're not here. So it's very important with the placement. Now, if you ever make mistakes with your bronzer, okay, and we all do it, if you over apply product, if you apply it too low, or if you apply it in the right spot, but then you blend it out and you end up blending it too low, all you have to do is take your foundation brush, and normally you don't even have to take and add more foundation to it. Just take the brush that you used for foundation and use it as a little eraser in the areas that you want to diminish or erase. Now, if you need to add foundation, go for it, but we'll find most times you don't even need to add foundation. You just need to use the brush from whatever's left over. Okay, now I'm going to kind of even out. Oh, this bronzer is so beautiful, you guys. It is so nice. It's very, very nice and very easy to blend out. I'm also going to take a little bit of this just on the little corner of the brush, and we're just going to run it down the nose, create a little bit more shape with the nose. I'm really shearing this out though, because sometimes I see nose contours and that's all I see because they're so strong. And while they may look good on camera or in a photograph, in real life, it's like all I see is like these orange stripes on the nose. So I'm making sure that mine is very soft. Perfect. Now, if you ever want to really define the jawline, you can use the same brush. And I just use whatever's left on the brush again, because there's a very distinct difference between makeup for photography or photo shoots or like event makeup that you see this really high glam and makeup for everyday life. Even sometimes when I've had my makeup done for photo shoots, it looks incredible and amazing. But if you look too close, you can kind of notice things that you would definitely notice if it were like your everyday look. So I'm going for something in between. I want the definition, but I want everything to be soft and blended. Perfect. Look at the skin. We are getting there. I love it. So this is definitely a 10 out of 10. I'm so happy with this purchase. Okay, let's talk about blush, you guys. Now for blush, you guys know I also love my cream blushes. I also love powder too. I think there are some incredible formulas, and makeup today is so different than it was like 20 years ago. The innovation behind these formulas are incredible. I'm just blown away. I'm not going to tell you that you have to do cream, you have to do powder. It's really what you're comfortable with and what you find works best for the climate that you live in and your skin type. Sometimes I will layer the two together if you really want longevity. I'm going to go in with this blush from Charlotte Tilbury. I've been talking quite a bit about this product. I love this. It is a very beautiful product, especially if you have dry skin. This is going to give you a high glow. Now, I don't think you will love this if you like more of a matte finish or more of a natural matte finish. I mean, this definitely gives a glow. I have heard from people whose opinion I really trust in makeup, who I always love their recommendations, and they are experts, that they didn't love this because it was a little too shiny. So I'm just going to give you that disclaimer. I love it though. I think it's really beautiful. Now I'm going to go in with the N20 brush, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this product. This is very pigmented, so a little bit goes a long way. You really don't need a lot. And blush has definitely been something that I have changed as I've gotten older. I'm a blush girl. I love blush. What I like about this blush, and particularly this brush, really, it's really the brush that's doing this, is it really allows you to build. You see how light and soft that is? And I can build and add more. But if I were to take a more dense brush, I wouldn't get this soft look. I would just get a lot of color. So this brush really gives you a lot of control. Back to blush and kind of how I've evolved my blush as I've gotten a little older. I'm a blush girl and I love blush. I have been known to apply too much at times, but you know, who's to say what's too much? But I always used to apply it right here. I'd smile and I would apply it right there, and then I would kind of blend down. Now, as I'm getting older, I noticed that that would drag my face down. So blush placement is huge. If you notice, I am using the apple of my cheek as a guide, but then I'm kind of blending a little further up and back. So I see less of it when I'm looking directly in the mirror. I don't see it here anymore like I used to apply. I really see it a little further back because it's lifting the face. When I was in my 20s, I didn't really have to do this because everything was kind of lifted already. This is so good. I love this color. It is beautiful. It's such a buttery formula. It's so easy to just blend out and achieve whatever look you're going for. If you want really sheer or real pigmented, but you can definitely see there is a high glow with this. There's not any shimmer to it, so it's not like a shimmery product, but you do get a very like wet glow. If you want to, you can always set this with a little powder. I've done that. I'm actually gonna do that today because I do have an event tonight. It's already 10:30. I'm not applying my makeup too early, but I have an event and I'm not gonna get home until about 8 p.m. tonight. So I do want this makeup to last. So I'm going to apply that and then I'm going to set it with a little powder. One of my favorite powder formulas for over 40 skin. I mean, I have a few actually. Let's talk quickly about the new Ilia blushes. These are really great. They have a little bit of pearl to them, but they're not shimmery or heavy or sparkly. These are beautiful. Say Beauty also has a really nice formula. It kind of reminds me of this. I just picked up this Hourglass palette, you guys. This is a splurge, but I love this palette. And I just like to mix these two shades together. So I'm going to mix those two together and we're just going to set this cream with that. It's going to add a little bit of color, but it's also just going to, for longevity purposes, it's just going to keep it on all day. The skin looks incredible. Oh my gosh, this foundation is so good. Okay, let's talk about eyes. So for eyes, I really love to do a cream shadow. I am loving these Longwear cream shadows from Makeup by Mario, and I get asked a lot about these. Are they very dry? Are they very matte? They do dry down pretty matte. So this is a product that you definitely don't want to over apply. If you over apply this product, when it dries down, it can look like cracky. So just make sure that you keep it really sheer. Another option that I love are the Lisa Eldridge. These are really nice. These are a little silkier and they're not quite as like dry as the Makeup by Mario. I also love cream shadows, like the Merit Beauty Solo shadows are very nice. But I just like to use a cream or a liquid formula that I can apply as a base to my eye. And I can either use it as a primer or as the shadow for the day. With this product, I like to use it kind of as my shadow. So I'll add a little bit of shadow in the crease to this and maybe a little bit on the outer half of the lid, but I'm not gonna layer a ton of powder directly on top of this. And again, it's because of the formulation and that it is more matte. Also, the beauty of these is it simplifies your makeup routine. This is the color Sandstone. You can see that it's a light, kind of neutral matte shade. I also have the shade Mauve, which every time I wear that, I always get asked, what do you have on your eyes? And it's this, but the shade Mauve. I don't think I have it with me, but it is a beautiful, beautiful neutral mauve. It's not too purpley. It's very neutral. It's gorgeous. Okay, and I'm using the N20S to blend this out and sheer this out because again, I want it to be real sheer. Now these are bulletproof. They are waterproof, sweatproof, oilproof. Nothing's gonna get through this. They're gonna stay on all day. I'm gonna allow that a little bit of time to dry and then I'm gonna go in and add some definition and I'm gonna use just kind of a matte, warm shadow to add a little definition. Let's see what I have here. What palettes do I have? I picked up the new Natasha Denona Eye Sculpt. This is the Texture and Tone palette and I think this is the soft one. A little bit softer. I love these shades. I'm going to go in with the BK Beauty 202 brush and I'm just going to mix these two together, P2 and Y2, those two together. Mix those two together and I'm going to softly sweep this in the crease. The great thing about the 202 is it's a fluffy crease brush, but it has a tapered tip, so it really does allow you control so you can keep that crease color in a specified area. Do you see that? Just giving a little bit of definition. I think my eye makeup has definitely changed over the years, over the decade. I used to wear a lot of eye makeup and now I feel like I just look better with less. I think that when I wear less eye makeup, it's actually when I feel my prettiest. Or maybe I'll wear a lot of eye makeup, but it'll be very neutral, soft colors. Perfect. So I'm just going to create that shape. And if you can tell, that's lifting the eye a little bit. It's creating definition in that crease and adding a little bit of lift to the eye. Now, after I've done both my eyes, I will kind of take a step back and I will compare the two. My face is not completely symmetrical. Most of us don't have completely symmetrical faces. So one eye is always going to look a little bit different. Maybe it sits a little higher or a little lower. Maybe there's less of that mobile lid you can see. But the beauty about makeup is that it can really help balance that out and add the illusion of more symmetry, but don't obsess over it, because when you obsess over trying to make everything perfect, that's usually when we end up applying too much or taking things too high, or I feel like there's beauty in imperfection, if that makes sense. Oh, how nice. Okay, so we're keeping it real soft, and I'm just gonna kind of feather out this crease a little bit to extend the eye. So I'm not adding shadow to the brush, but I am just taking what's here and I'm just kind of blending it out a little bit, kind of extend the eye a bit. I'm going to go back into this Hourglass palette, and this is a little hack you can do to add more lift to the brow bone. I'm going to go in with this powder right here, and I'm actually going to mix it with mixing these two powders. Now, if you're familiar with the Hourglass ambient powders, they have a little bit of a sheen to it, a little bit of a radiance, but they're not shimmery, right? They're not super shimmery or heavy. They're very soft. So I'm going to do that right under the brow to give a little bit of a highlight and a lift in a more subtle way. Now this brush is designed to pick up and lay down a lot of product, so I'm keeping my pressure very soft and light here. I'm going to take that same powders and we're going to pop that right here in the inner part of the eye. And this is just going to brighten and highlight the eye. This will really brighten and keep the eyes awake. I struggle with dry eyes, so my eyes kind of always look a little tired. They're always a little more red, and I use my Lumify drops now, so they're whiter, but typically if I don't use those, they're a little bit more red and they just look tired. So this little hack can brighten the eyes without having to use the Lumify drops every day. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to use the same brush and I'm going to create a little definition on the lower lash line, but to do that I'm going to use shadow, and this is definitely something that I do more of these days, is I use a shadow as liner. It's just softer than an eye pencil. I still use eye pencils from time to time, but when I'm doing a softer look, I just find that a little bit of shadow gives me all the definition I need down there without pulling the eye down or being too heavy. And I'm just using the shade Y2. Perfect. I'm just going to build it up till I get to a point that I feel like, okay, that's good. And I feel like that's good right there. I'm going to take my 108 brush and I'm just going to sweep away any fallout. Okay, so now let's talk about liner. Liner is so important, and this is definitely something that has changed over the years. So now I like to keep my liner very, very thin, and I like to try and keep it on the outer half of the eye and not take it all the way to the inner corner. Sometimes that doesn't always happen because maybe I will get my line a little too thick and then I'll go in with the brush to correct it, and then I'll find myself getting a little bit over. But the goal is to keep the liner the outer half. I'm going to go in with this eye kohl from Sephora collection, and this is the shade Cappuccino, and this has a little bit of a sparkle to it. So it's a bronze shade with a little bit of shimmer to it. I like to use bronze over black because it's softer and it's less harsh on the eye. And I also like to use eyeliners with a little bit of shimmer to them because, again, it just reflects light and gives a softer look. So I'm going to really focus this right here in the outer half. And I'm going to do one eye at a time. I'm going to do this eye first, and then I'm going to go in and we are going to just kind of smooth it out. I'm going to use the N23, and I'll just softly pull out the tip to kind of wing out the eye a little bit. It's very soft. Okay, oh, lovely, so good. Okay, then we're going to go and do the other eye. These liners do dry pretty quickly, so you definitely want to do one eye at a time. And you want to have that brush that you're using to smudge it or soften it, you want to have it nearby. Perfect. Okay. There we go. All right, now let's go and add some mascara. Today I'm using the Revita Lash Mascara. What I love about this is it has a primer on one side and mascara on the other. I've been traveling a lot lately. All my travels are wrapped up though, thankfully. I'm home now. But I always travel with this mascara because it's 2 products in one. I'm going to do a little primer. Perfect. Okay, now with mascara, I like to really build up my upper lashes, and then I like to apply a very small amount on the lower lashes. I want a little definition there, but I don't want my mascara on my lower lashes to be too heavy because, again, it just kind of weighs the eye down. But also, it will lend itself to having more smudging, or, when people say they have raccoon eyes, that can be a result of either eyeliner or mascara. But just having dark products that heat up throughout the day with the oils from your skin or from mixing with your concealer, and it just doesn't look good. So I like to keep my lower lash line much lighter than the upper lash line. And I really take my time to build the lash. Perfect. Okay, let's go in and do the other side. Look at that. Oh, that's mascara. So good. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to do one extra coat. When I have very clean, minimal eyeshadow on like this, I really like to load up the lashes. Perfect. Okay, and then we'll do a tiny bit on the lower. Again, not too much, just enough to get some definition, but resist the urge to layer that on the lower lash. Perfect. Oh, so good. I love this. So really to kind of summarize eye makeup, I like to keep it lighter. I like to define the crease. I like to just do very clean, polished eye looks, define the lash line, but keep everything light and bright. That's really the best way to open up the eyes and give the illusion of more bright eyes and open eyes. When we use dark, heavy shadows, not to say I don't use dark shadows, but just kind of day to day, I like to keep the eyes lighter, brighter, but just to find that crease and that lash line. So pretty. It's all about the skin, this healthy glow in the cheeks. Okay, now let's talk about lips. So for lips, I always like to slightly overline the lips, and I like to use a nude pencil. Really, regardless of what lip color I'm using, mostly I stick to nudes, peachy pinks, cool tone pinks. But even if I were doing like a bold red lip, I would still start with a neutral lip pencil. This is gonna allow me to create shape to the lip. It's gonna allow me to like over enhance the lips, but also when that lip color wears off, because it's neutral, it's not going to look obvious or like I've drawn a line around my lips, if that makes sense. This is the Makeup by Mario lip liner, and this is the shade Hue, I think. Yes, it's the shade Hue. Okay, and then I'm just gonna overline the lips, but then I'm also gonna kind of connect the Cupid's bow here. So instead of having like a real heart-shaped Cupid's bow, I'm almost kind of smoothing that out a little bit. And then I also always line the inner corners of the lip. And I do that for a few reasons. One, so when the lipstick wears off, I still have some color on the lips and not just this obvious line around the lips. But two, it creates just a good base and a foundation for your lip color, so your overall lip color is going to last and stay on longer. Now I'm going to go in with a pink, and I have this lipstick from the Sephora collection. This is the shade 4. It's a nice, pretty, like everyday pink. I love it. It's going to give some color to this look, and it's a nice satin formula. So it's not matte, but it's not one of those real balmy, glossy lipsticks. So you're gonna have good staying power. The balmier and glossier the lipstick, usually the less longevity it has. The more matte a lipstick is, usually it's gonna last longer. This is a good balance between the two because it's moisturizing, so it's not like drying like a matte, but it's not glossy and balmy either, so it'll actually stay on the lips. Oh, that's so pretty. Isn't that pretty? Now I'm going to add a little bit of gloss for some volume. I think adding gloss is just like, and a peachy blush is just like signs of, youth. I'm going in with pretty much a transparent gloss. This is from the Sephora collection. This is the shade 01 Outrageous. It looks pink, but it's just very slightly tinted. It's pretty much clear. And I love this formula. It's high shine, not too sticky, just beautiful. I love it. So pretty. And that is the full look, you guys. So these are kind of just like everyday tips and tricks that I use when I apply my makeup, when I want to look my best, but it's still just like good everyday makeup, not special event makeup, not going out makeup, not makeup for photography, just a good kind of everyday glam. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned anything from this video, drop a comment down below. I would love to know what you learned from this video. And also drop a comment below what videos you want to see me film next. I love teaching makeup, so if there's any tips or tricks or makeup issues that you're having, drop those comments down below as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!